unleash innovation in savings and financing, I'm also working to ensure America remains the crypto capital of the world. And to the
We're dealing with tech issues this morning, guys. Good morning, everybody. Hello and welcome back to another episode of your favorite crypto news channel. Good evening, crypto. And we're going to be breaking down some very exciting topics all throughout today's show. And we appreciate each and every single one of you. But today is about our special guest, as we've got Keith D, aka the Inner Operator, joining us for today's show. Now, I know some people, they may not have seen Keith's content. You do phenomenal analysis on the crypto market, the Clarity Act. We're going to be breaking all this stuff down throughout today's episode, but you guys saw the title of today's show, which is President Trump has just announced in Davos, Trump is set to sign the Clarity Act very soon, and this could be the catalyst that changed the entire momentum of the market. And Keith, that's really what we've been discussing here all throughout the last couple of weeks. There was a lot of hesitation as we headed into January. We are waiting on this crypto stagnation to come to a close, and that's what we're going to be breaking down all throughout today's show, guys. We've also got a major update out of Ripple. Now, in Davos, there were two major updates. Number one, the World Economic Forum went on to state that the XRP ledger is going to be a pillar for the tokenization of real-world assets. We also had Ripple announcing a brand new partnership here with XCN. Now, what's really interesting about this is that this core banking platform connects to Amazon, Google, IBM, Microsoft, Oracle, and a bunch of other companies that we're going to be getting into and breaking down all throughout today's show. But as I figure out the tech issues in the background, we're going to break down the brand new clip out of the World Economic Forum where Donald Trump is stating the Clarity Act is set to be approved very soon. And that's music to my ears as a long-term crypto investor. But Keith, first of all, thank you for being here. How you feeling this morning? We've been talking about this one for a long time. Now, here's the thing. I saw the Tennessee Titans Cup in your hand. We are Patriots fans on this channel, just to let you know.
I didn't mean to expose myself.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry. Not all of us.
Thanks again, Keith. What's on your mind this morning? I know you've been keeping up with what's going on in Davos. What's your reaction to what you've seen thus far?
Oh man, it's a crazy week. It's a crazy week. It's impossible to keep up with all the headlines and the words coming out from people. You know, there's the thing about Davos is that there's these 45-minute, hour-long speeches that are happening, and there's just like tons of heat throughout all of it, right? I mean, we're seeing Brad Garlinghouse is there. We're seeing that, oh my goodness, Brian Armstrong is there. And, you know, I haven't even seen all of the different people that are there, but it's going to be really cool to go back and actually watch the full episodes to see what's going on for sure.
You know what's really interesting too, Keith? We were going through who is sponsoring the USA House of Davos, and it's Microsoft, it's Pfizer, it's a couple of the big companies you'd assume, but there was only two blockchain companies there. It was Ripple and it was Hedera. Wow. And I tweeted it out. I go, as an XRP investor, is this good news or bad news that Ripple is associated to these companies? A lot of people are like, listen, this is what we signed up for. Yeah. If they're going to play a major role, they're going to be involved with the companies that are shaping the future of their industries. So guys, we already have 1,250 live listeners here. If you're enjoying this content, show us some love, smash that like button. And Johnny Krypto, I got the tech issues figured out. We're going to play this brand new video out of Davos today. This is President Trump announcing in front of the world, America will become the crypto capital of the world. And his goal is to get the Clarity Act signed very soon. Here it is.
To unleash innovation in savings and financing, I'm also working to ensure America remains the crypto capital of the world. And to that end, last year, I signed the landmark Genius Act into law. Now Congress is working very hard on crypto market structure legislation, Bitcoin, all of them, which I hope to sign very soon, unlocking new pathways for Americans to reach financial freedom. And I did it for two reasons. Number one, I thought it was politically good, and it was. I got tremendous political support. But more importantly, China wanted that market too. It's just like they want the AI. And we've got that market, I think, pretty well locked up. If I didn't do it, you know, Biden was totally against it until before the election when they realized that, you know, there were millions of people voting against him over crypto. And all of a sudden they loved it very much, but it was too late. They blew it. But it is politically popular, but it's much more importantly, we have to make it so that China doesn't get the hold of it. And once they have that hold, we're not going to be able to get it back.
So Johnny, I know I've said it before and I'll say it again.
To unleash innovation and saving.
Anytime the United States government wants to get something done, they point to their global counterparts and they say, if we don't do it, Russia and China will. So I'm just looking at this objectively, trying to figure out, when are we going to get the Clarity Act and what is the impact going to be on the crypto industry overall? when I look at what President Trump is doing, and we listened to Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick speak on stage yesterday as well. Scott Bessent confirmed they are going to be creating a Bitcoin reserve based on what they've confiscated thus far. Their goal, they are not going to be selling any more Bitcoin going forward. Well, my safe assumption is that by the end of the Trump administration, we are going to be the crypto capital of the world because of the initiatives that we're talking about today. What's your reaction to Donald Trump sitting in front of Davos and telling the world we're going to be the crypto capital and we want the Clarity Act approved very soon?
Well, Abs, first of all, let me just say good morning to all the crypto maniacs. We love and appreciate you guys for showing up every single day. And I'm excited. We got the walking man in the house, Keith D. Happy to share some time with you, brother. Abs,
Yes, sir.
Trump has always been very consistent about one thing. He wants to grow the economy and he wants to make America number one. And the reality is America has kind of, we don't do manufacturing anymore. We've given up a lot of productivity. And the one thing we do have always been our innovators. And one area that we all can see coming is blockchain technology. We know that this is an area where a major innovation is going to happen. We know they're cheaper, better solutions. They're going to drive the back ends of all the systems. The last thing Trump wants, or America would want, is other countries taking the lead. And we saw that happening under the Biden administration. We saw things going overseas. We were going to Dubai. Dubai was coming. There was going to be the head. Hong Kong, Singapore. And remember, we had on the show, Ripple, 70 jobs, 60 of them were outside the U.S., right? Well, as an American president, what's the best thing you can do for your country is bring that technology back home. And I think Trump is very serious about it. And obviously, he's putting pressure on Congress to get the damn Clarity Act done because we really, really need it. We saw what it did in 96. It was actually illegal to innovate in the telecom space. Very similar to today. Without that Clarity Act, it makes it very difficult for companies to innovate in this space without the fear of the next administration coming after them. So I think we will get it. It's not going to be what everybody wants. It's going to be a happy medium, just like every other bill in the world, the way our Congress is set up. And I think that's what we're going to get is some kind of compromise where neither side is happy. The banks aren't going to be happy. Crypto industry is not going to be happy. And believe it or not, that's going to be the best thing for you, me, and everybody in the crypto space because it's going to allow this industry to move forward. So I think it'll happen, Abs. I think Trump will keep the pressure on Congress to get it done. And I'm hoping we'll get it done this quarter.
Keith, I'm going to kick it straight to you. I just wanted to draw the connection here. Yesterday, we got a brand new article out of the World Economic Forum, and they said a new foundation of global finance, a dialogue between banks and blockchains. And the major bullet point that caught my attention was the final one at the top of the article where he said, the industry's next phase hinges on clear global standards and mature, reliable infrastructure. So what does that mean? They're going to go with battle-tested blockchains, and they want rules and guidelines so they can operate. What's your initial reaction to what Trump had to say and anything else that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing, the China versus U.S. conversation, right? This is paramount. This is what we're seeing for the past decade and a half right now that China's become this major global power. And it happened really fast, by the way. Like when we really look at this, it was like from the 90s to now, all of a sudden, China was like nothing. And it's now, right, potentially just as powerful and important as the United States. And so when it comes to technology, we've definitely seen them taking the lead when it comes to crypto and digital assets, right? In a very different kind of way, right? So specifically, they've got the CBDC that they've kind of pushed out throughout the past 5-6 years, however long it's really been, and then and that becoming such an integral part of their culture through the apps that they already use, right? Their WeChat, that kind of being like the social commerce platform of all things, which is something that we don't really have like that in the US, that is. So for we've seen the picture being painted. I've never been to China. I've heard this. I was just in Thailand a little while ago and meeting some people who've spent some time in China. And one of the scenarios that they pointed out to me is when you, for instance, jaywalk. Okay, if you walk across the street illegally or something like that, not only could you actually get debited and fined from your account in real time, but you also are going to get your face plastered up on like a billboard screen if it's at a busy intersection so that people can see that you're the one breaking the law. And so I point all of this out because China has potentially been using this kind of technology, distributed ledgers, and not even just that, but just digital currency, right, as a way to have a little bit more power over their citizens. And when you have that kind of a scenario, I was just talking about this the other day on my show, Memes and Markets. When you have that kind of a scenario, what happens is you have a little bit of a stronger grip on your entire economy, right? You've got taxes that you can levy, fees that you can levy for different things that you might want to encourage or discourage throughout your society. You could also potentially be crediting people for doing certain types of things within your society. And when you have that much of a grip over your country and potentially the economy and the labor, right, in that sort of a sense, then it's going to be really hard for any other country to compete with that without also taking a similar approach. And so the last thing I'll say on all this is when you look at Brad Garlinghouse being at the World Economic Forum, like, yeah, you're right, guys. Like, it's not necessarily going to be the most ideal thing for trying to maintain probably privacy and freedom, but we have to understand also that what the company Ripple is doing is 100% around creating technology that enables this kind of world. Now, the question will be, will the legislators in the United States make the differentiation that needs to be done regarding the privacy preserving aspects of these technologies and the freedom preserving possibilities that are still there? There is an option, there's an opportunity here. And as us, I'm super proud to be a part of this, and everyone who's here who cares about this, so that we can stay on top of this as the legislators are trying to push this stuff across the line. So I'll stop there.
Completely agree with you, Keith. And you know what's interesting is that me and Johnny have often had the conversation where the baby boomers, they had the housing market. And then Johnny, your generation, you had the stock market. You were getting 20% year over year since the late 90s. Our generation, we have crypto assets. My belief is that the 20, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds who hold these assets for the next 15, 20 years, this is going to be where generational wealth is made inside the American markets. And that's why I think Donald Trump is taking such a prominent role. He wants to go down as the president that kicked off the crypto crusade here inside the United States. And I think he's going to get it done with the signing of the Clarity Act in 2026, guys. We already have 2,200 live listeners here. I want to hear from you. Put a 1 in chat if you believe Donald Trump gets the Clarity Act signed in 2026. Put a 2 in chat if you simply think it does not occur. But this is some of the breaking news we just got out of the World Economic Forum. They are highlighting the XRP ledger as a key driver for asset tokenization in global financial markets. Well, yesterday we got a major update in regards to the Clarity Act, and we're going to get into this as well, where the CFTC chairman confirms they want to create clear rules and guidelines to ensure these markets flourish at home. Well, our listeners are going to walk away with a better understanding of that, as just this morning, I meant to say, Brad Garlinghouse was on stage in Davos discussing what's next for the American markets. And Johnny, what's great about this, American-made projects are being prioritized and most likely going to flourish under the Trump administration. Here's the brand new clip.
Because you're the innovator in the room, but you also believe in regulation.
Yeah, I think what's going on in the U.S. right now, it is a classic dynamic of when you create new law, it's never going to be perfect. And, I think what's the dynamic within the industry and working with Congress has been kind of, I subscribe to the idea that perfection is the enemy of good, and you can't get to perfection. And so I think Brian's exactly right. We're as close as we've ever been in providing that clarity. As some in the room probably know, Ripple lived through a 5-year battle with the U.S. government being sued because of the lack of clarity. So we are very much an advocate of clarity is better than chaos. I think Brian's right. We are very close. I don't know if we
what about
stalled.
the rewards side? Rewards, dividends, interest. Is it necessary on stablecoins?
Ripple doesn't have as much of a dog in that fight as others in the industry. And so there's others that have stronger opinions. It doesn't directly affect Ripple's business as much. I agree in some ways that, look, competition is good. And I agree very much with the idea of level playing field. Now, I also think a level playing field goes 2 ways, in that crypto companies should be held to standards that banks are, and banks should be held to standards that crypto companies are in order to compete. So I don't think that's a one-way street, that somehow Team Crypto gets to have, a certain pass in some way.
A lot can be addressed in that very short clip, Johnny. So I'm going to kick it over to you, and then we're going to go to Keith, guys. I do want to give a massive shout out. We already passed 380 likes on the program. If you're enjoying today's content, smash that like button, give a shout out to Keith D in chat. But Johnny, I want to know your initial thoughts and reactions here, because what Brad just outlined is what we've been debating, basically, me and you have been debating for the better half of 6 months here. If clarity is signed, this is what we need to bring speculators into this market. Floor is yours.
Well, first of all, there's a lot to unpack there, Abs, and it's pretty funny that he's sitting there and she's asking the question that the guy right next to him really cares about a lot, because Brian's going to fight and die on the hill for that extra, for that yield. But the reality is, listen, if we do not get the Clarity Act, the only other option is Operation Choke Point 3.0. We're just going to sit here and go sideways. This industry is not going to move forward, because we've heard over and over again. I'm in technology too, right? We know These guys are not going to be willing to innovate in a space where the rules aren't unclear. And you just heard Brad say he spent 5 years getting sued. And not because it was because there were no rules of the road. We're using a 1943 ruling that has no application to today's technology. And that's just going to continue to happen if we don't get it. And that's why Brad is saying, guys, I'm okay if it's only half good. He's right. At the end of the day, we need a compromise. And I know a lot of people in our chat don't agree. They all want us to, go what Charles said, fight to the end. Well, if you do that, basically what you're saying is you're okay with this thing being on hold for another 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And I don't think that would actually hurt this industry, because the other countries' apps, they're going to move forward and then they're going to get that first mover advantage. So at the end of the day, I think Brad is right. We need to find a healthy compromise somewhere in the middle. We know the banks don't want to give up their big empire. That's what this is all about. And we know the crypto industry wants to come in and play. And I believe that, listen, at the end of the day, the banks don't care. They're already the king of the hill. So who has more to lose? It's the crypto industry. So I think, Abs, we will see, Brian, Coinbase, I think we'll see them all come to the house, and they'll come and find some way to find a happy medium to move the needle forward. Otherwise, we're going to be in a stagnant environment, and that's not what Ripple wants. It's not what the industry needs right now. We need a solution. I think we're going to get it this quarter.
Keith, I'd love to hear what you have to say in regards to what Brad had referenced. This is a brand new update as well, guys. Paul Barron just confirmed the Senate just made a huge counter move on the House passing the Clarity Act. Think of it like a high-stakes negotiation. The House bill said, here, CFTC, take broad power over crypto. Well, the Senate agriculture bill said, okay, we're shrinking the definition of what you regulate, and we want a tougher rules for customer safety. So what they're able to define, they're going to be very stringent on, but the Senate agrees on the direction, but wants a tighter leash. The real battle for the final rules has officially begun. So the progress is being continued. What's your reaction, Keith?
Yeah. So the thing is that the CFTC is 100% who should be in control of what's happening here. I mean, we're talking about assets that are trading 24/7 for one already, right? So that's already something that the SEC is just like, it's not really a part of what their entire warehouse really looks like. Obviously, you have after hours trading, aftermarket and pre-market trading and stuff like that. But the way that the CFTC is built, the way that it's set up is just a little bit different, right? It's 24/5 all the time. And the types of markets that they're trading, the types of products that are being built are a lot different. It's a lot more complex. It's not your typical securities transactions. And so it's not that CFTC is any more important than or less than the SEC, or that one has a harder job than the other. But the CFTC's role is very much so, I guess it's so funny because we've seen the SEC be super aggressive and regulate through enforcement over the past 5-6 years. And unfortunately, that's made them the bad guy in the room when, and there's other reasons too, right? The SEC is like the people that take away all of the opportunities for the everyday person to get involved. And like the CFTC is almost the exact opposite of that. It's like you could do so many cool things as a regular retail investor in the commodities and futures markets, which you can't do as the same way with the SEC. And so anyways, it would be really, really nice to have the CFTC be in control of this, just because I feel like it leaves so many more rooms for just like open interpretations, like actually building definitions, whereas the securities frameworks are very rigid. And this is why we have so much of a problem in the industry today, is because if you're looking at these things as securities, and there's a lot of things that you just can't do. So anyways, that was one of the first things that came to mind. And then I wanted to also touch on Brad Garlinghouse's words. They spent 5 years, or they spent years, excuse me, with the court case, and over $100 million, right? And I love being on the show because I feel like I can like let my XRP self out. I can be the XRP army here. But I always want to point to that too when people are talking about like, oh, like it's Ripple, it's not XRP and all of this. But then you heard him say on the stage there that this whole stablecoin debate isn't something that he really has so much of a dog in the fight in. And so what does that mean? That means to me that they're not worried about that as much as they're worried about the definition of these assets like XRP and how they can be defined and used within the traditional financial system. Because otherwise, I mean, they just launched a stablecoin, right? So how does that not matter to him as much? It's because it's not the major thing that they're focused on.
I completely agree with you, Keith. And this is a brand new video that kind of backs up a lot of what you're saying, where crypto czar David Sachs just came out this morning on CNBC live from Davos and said the Clarity Act will bring the banking industry into the blockchain space. Here it is.
A good compromise is everyone leaves a little bit unhappy, right? But I think what's going to happen is that after market structure is, the banks are going to get fully into the crypto industry. So we're not going to have a separate banking industry and crypto industry. It's going to be one digital assets industry. And I think
And will they be regulated the
their
same
opinions
way?
are going to evolve over time. And I bet you over time, the banks like the idea of paying yield.
Tech issues once again, guys. I apologize for the slow Wi-Fi, but the point is the same, Johnny Crypto. We're going to see the banks enter the crypto space, and all of us are here before that very moment. Here's the thing that's really obvious to me right now, and me and you did some analysis on this. Sentiment in the crypto space is at an all-time low. Retail investors feel like they got duped in 2025. People are increasingly more pessimistic that we're heading into a bear market here in 2026, and that's why my thesis on how these four-year cycles really operate has evolved. I'm looking at the ISM. I'm looking at the business cycle. I'm looking at the debt cycle. I'm looking at the Clarity Act being passed, the launching of stable coins, the approval of ETFs. All of these major catalysts are arriving or on the horizon, yet crypto prices are down in the dumps. So there's a clear divergence between what's happening from an institutional standpoint and how retail investors are feeling about the future of this space. When the Clarity Act is approved, which will most likely happen in 2026 from these assumptions at the World Economic Forum, that is going to bring the biggest players into the space, and most likely the massive amount of speculators that are still sitting on the sidelines. There's a really interesting piece of data, and I shared it with you yesterday, Johnny, where back in 2021, there was more social media engagement in crypto content than there is here today in 2026. Millions of people have left the market, and at some point, those millions of people are going to return. What brings retail investors back in? Price action. The second that Bitcoin is creating new all-time highs, that's when the average retail investor goes and says, is it too late to buy Bitcoin? And we experienced this firsthand last year when President Trump won the election, XRP, Bitcoin, all these assets began to thrive, and everyone in our personal lives, at the gym, family, friends, started to approach us and say, is it too late to buy these assets even though they're up 200%? That is the inverse of how the institutions think. They look at a Bitcoin down 35% in the last 3-4 months, and they go, is it too late or is it going to fall more? Should I wait for 74,000 or should I buy it at 80? It is the exact flippening that we need to see from retail. So just the sentiment alone could change the momentum of the market. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
The sentiment will absolutely change it. But however, you have to remember the playbook of how this is played. This is no different than any other liquidity market. It's all it is. They're all liquidity markets. At the end of the day, it works in 3 phases. Phase 1, smart money comes in when everybody else is down and they're picking up, they're buying. Then you get the institutional money coming in next. And then third, then once they're both in, what starts happening? 2 things. 1, they turn on their media. They call their media buddies. Hey, start talking about this stuff on TV. You start hearing it. You start getting people excited. You're going to hear more and more about it on TV. Prices start moving up because they'll buy a little bit here and there, and they'll start moving the price up. Everybody gets excited, and then the FOMO happens, and retail comes and drives it over. We know how it works. We absolutely know how it works. And right now, it's playing perfectly to the playbook. Smart money's buying right now. Institutional money will come in once we get the clear. Somebody asked me in the chat, they said, Johnny, do you think the Clarity Act, let's see, where is it? Do you think the Clarity Act won't move the price? No, it won't initially. Because what's going to happen is, just like in 96 when we got the Telecom Act, retail didn't start coming in until about 6 to 8 months later and start driving the price up and went batshit crazy for 3 years. The same thing I think is going to happen here, Abs. We're going to get the Clarity Act. Nobody's going to give a shit. Nobody cares. Nobody knows the impact of it except the smart money, institutional money. They understand that once we get that, to Keith's point earlier, now everybody can innovate in this space. Brad doesn't care about RSUSD. His business model isn't, we're going to make money on 4% interest off of RLUSD. No, that's not what he cares about. You know what he wants? He wants the XRP ledger used everywhere. He wants XRP adopted so every back-end system in the world is running off of XRP. That's where they make their money. That's where they can sell their services, Ripple as a company, and they make a ton of money. So, sorry, I forgot to mute the phone.
That's okay.
That's what they're looking for, right? So, this is playing out perfectly. Now, here's the problem. Retail doesn't understand the game. They're impatient. Our audience, they get it because they're here, they're listening. Now is the time. Again, not financial advice. We're not financial advisors. But this is the time if you want to change the generational wealth of your family trajectory. You got to play it like smart money does, Abs. You got to start getting in when nobody in the world wants it. Wealth is built in the waiting. I got my AI tongue. So at the end of the day, I don't know what's going on over here. So at the end of the day, like Warren Buffett says, you want to be buying when you feel like puking in the streets. And right now, we know retail sentiment is puking in the streets. This is the perfect optimal time to get into this game because Abs, once money starts flying and then news is great, it's too late. You're going to miss half this run. But I do believe we are setting up for a beautiful speculative bull run somewhere, 3 to 6 months from now. I'm very excited about it. There's my 8 cents.
Absolutely. Keith, I know you got some thoughts. I'm going to kick it straight to you. Somebody just asked where they can follow you guys. Check out Keith's YouTube. This is where I follow you. Now, again, this is my backup account. So it's if you see the unsubscribe, Keith, don't be offended. This is not the account that I use, but it's called The Inner Operator on YouTube, guys. You can type in Keith D. His account will come right up, and he does an update every single day. Phenomenal stuff. Floor is yours. Love to hear your reaction to what Johnny had to say.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most interesting things that I want to try to point out is this idea of like the smart money buying in times like this. So in financial markets, we have these entities that are called market makers, right? And their job, their entire business model essentially is built upon taking the opposite side of trades when people want to make a trade. So if you want to sell, they'll buy. If you want to buy, they'll sell. And then they'll make money on the spread between the bid and the ask of these transactions. And so now I'm a disciple of what's called, what do you call it? Smart money concepts, or what's his name? Oh my goodness. Michael Huddleston, who is a trader in the futures market, and he's taught tons of people how to do it. And the way that I look at markets through that lens is this idea that you've got the market maker who's consistently on the other side of your trade. And so while prices are going down, what are market makers doing? They're buying, they're buying, they're buying, they're buying, they're buying. And in some cases, they're going to be buying more and more and more as prices go down further and further, right? And then you get to the other side of the curve. The market maker model is what they call it. And then they're selling and they're selling and they're selling and they're selling all the way up. So the point being, when you get these pullbacks in the market, there are institutional people that are on the other side of those trades, right? And that's literally their entire business model, is to take the other side of the trades while everyone's being emotional, while everyone's being afraid, they're buying. Now, with all of that said, I think this is going to be a super tricky year for markets all around the board. The thing is we've got a major wild card here, right? In the president of the United States and all the moves that he's making. It's something that is really hard to try and prepare around. And this is why I like the approach that I think you guys take, which is to just have exposure, right? Just be in it, right? You don't want to be sitting on the sidelines. You don't want to be like waiting for something else to happen for you to get involved, because there's also this potential that you have an event, right? Like, I think that's the one thing that everyone in the XRP army is kind of like prepared for, or like, excited for in some way, is that there's just going to be some event that happens. And then all of a sudden you see massive adoption of the XRP ledger, right? Now, I'm not someone who I feel like it's not good to need that to happen in order for your investment thesis to work. But at the same time, you don't want to be on the sidelines in case that kind of a thing happens. So last thing I'll touch on, in investing, you have expected value, and then you have risk of ruin, are two things that I like to talk about a lot. Expected value is your win rate versus your loss rate. And then how much do you actually win when you win, and how much do you lose when you lose, right? So let's say you win 50% of the time. Well, in that case, if you only win one when you win and you lose one when you lose, then in that case, you're always going to be break even. But if when you win two, but when you lose one, then that 50% win rate, and even lower, you can have like a 30% win rate, and you're actually making money over time. So my point in that was that we're talking about an asymmetric opportunity here, right? We're just talking about the adoption of something like Ripple and the XRP ledger. And obviously that goes for all of crypto. Okay. It's an asymmetric opportunity where the downside is very low compared to the upside, and the volatility that you have to go through for that, you do pay for it in volatility, but it's even cheaper in terms of volatility than your regular S&P 500 or NASDAQ 100. So the risk of ruin, and I'll wrap up, is this concept of you never want to be in a position to where one bet is going to ruin your entire portfolio, right? So that's also something to keep in mind. I know a lot of us are all in, and don't get me wrong, I'm very heavy in this space, but always keep that in mind as well, because we also don't know the time frame. I think we might be underestimating the time frame for what it may take for the actual adoption of this technology. But Johnny, you've made some really good points about the speculation being something that can happen first.
Completely agree with you, Keith. Johnny, I'm going to kick it right to you. This is just the graph that we always talk about, guys. 1996, Telecom Act has passed. 6 months later, we got a rise in the space. 3 years later, we're looking at projects. The space more broadly, Donnie, did a 50x in value across the board. Imagine if we even get a 10x in the crypto space overall. And I do think there's a really interesting video that we should play that kind of correlates to exactly what you're going to get into. This is Brian Armstrong talking about how everybody needs 5% allocation to Bitcoin because they're printing US dollars as we speak.
The cool thing about Bitcoin is that it doesn't, unlike fiat currency, there's no money printer, right? So the supply of it is fixed, it's finite. And so as more people integrate crypto and use crypto, there's more demand and finite supply. That only means the price can go up. That's why I said by 2030, I think it could hit $1 million. I mean, if they don't have at least 5% of their net worth in Bitcoin, they're probably going to be pretty sad.
So there you have it, Johnny.
The cool thing about Bitcoin is that
I think it's just validating kind of what we said about the early adoption of products like Amazon or Yahoo. Even some of these failed businesses, people made billions of dollars off of them, and maybe we'll have the same opportunity. What's your reaction?
Well, yeah, first of all, Abs, we've never had an asset throughout literally the history of time. Ever have we had an asset that's limited? It's the first time ever. Think about how crazy that is. Gold, find it every day, still mining it. Silver, still mining it. Houses are built every day. Gas is found. Oil. There's no finite asset. It's the first time ever. And that's why I think you're seeing the elites and a lot of people, big government, smart money, get behind Bitcoin. Because a lot of people, what the hell does it do? Well, I think what they're realizing, hey, this asset, why is gold worth anything? Why is paper money worth anything? Literally because government said it is. That's it. It's just that simple. Well, if governments say Bitcoin is valuable, and now for the first time ever, you have an asset that's finite, and a government's willing to back it, that's the recipe for rocket fuel to drive any asset through the moon, right? So I couldn't agree more. And actually, Keith said something I think is important. We talk about that on the show all the time. You need to be diversified. None of us know which horse is going to win this race. Right? That's why we want to have a bunch of horses galloping in this son bitch, put them in the stable and see which ones are going to win. Some are going to win. Most are going to lose. But as Keith, I think, was trying to say earlier, it doesn't, if you get one horse that wins big, it don't matter if the other 10 lose, right? And that's kind of what we're thinking about. But I want to touch on something that Keith was starting to touch on. Absolutely couldn't agree with you more. I say it all the time in this show. We are very, very far away from adoption. I'm in the technology space, been here for 20, 30 years. And everybody thinks, oh, clarity switch. We're going to flip the switch, and tomorrow the whole world's going to be running on blockchain. Sorry, guys. Hate to bust the bubble. It don't work that way. We know that it takes anywhere from 10 to 15 years from speculation to adoption. Now, I'm not saying that's starting today. The adoption clock probably started about 3 to 4 years ago, 5 years ago. You can argue somewhere in that range. We know that companies are testing blockchains. We know they're out there running. We're probably in the midst of it. We're probably 5 to 10, 5 to 6, 8, 9, 10 years away before we see full adoption of the whole world running on blockchains, tokenization, everything. But that doesn't mean there aren't phases where you can make money. And if you pull up my chart that I gave you there, Abs, you can see in 96, there was a massive 3-year period of time. You could have bought anything. You guys all know my Amazon story, right? You could have bought anything in that boom and you were making a ton of money. As long as you had an exit plan and you understood the game and knew that it wasn't sustainable, because adoption, Amazon wasn't making $1 trillion back then. They were just getting started, but people were betting on them, right? And you could see it took almost 10 or 12 years before full adoption, before you even got back to the same price that you could have sold it at in 1996 and 97. So let this be a lesson learned to all you guys. I know a lot of people aren't sure. I'm never selling my XRP. Okay, don't sell it. But look at that chart, because it's probably going to go up. It's probably going to come down, and then it's going to go back up again. And you can take advantage of history, learn from it. So that's my advice to everybody. Not financial advice, but just read history. Be a study of that, because as we always talk about, Abs, you say this all the time. History may not repeat, but it often rhymes. And I have a feeling we're literally in a similar recipe for success like we saw in 96, 97, and 98.
And that's music to my ears, Johnny Krypto, because for a long time, I felt like a lot of people who didn't find crypto, we were looking for the asset class that would give us that chance to have an advantage in these global markets. Well, I feel like we found it here. And I'm a big advocate for XRP, guys. This is why I'm constantly talking about Ripple. Ripple is doing things that no other blockchain company is doing today. They're a voice with the World Economic Forum. Brad Garlinghouse is helping Donald Trump develop the Clarity Act. They've got the RLUSD stablecoin, which I do have some groundbreaking news on that this morning. Binance is going to be listing Ripple's RLUSD and introducing RLUSD zero trading fee promotion here, guys. So you're going to be able to use the token without paying anything to trade. And this is what we're talking about. The eventual migration of real world companies and real world demand finding themselves on the blockchain products that we're talking about. It doesn't mean utility. We just need speculation and the utility will follow thereafter. And I think, Keith, you said something very similar where you stated people may be underestimating how long this takes. Well, here's what we don't have to underestimate. Speculators always come in when projects are outperforming. When does a project have its most euphoric moments? When it breaks its all-time high. That's why you saw Bitcoin go from 20,000 to 70,000 during the 2021 bull market, or for many of these altcoins back in last November when they began to move, speculators come in and it drives the price exponentially higher. What smart traders and I guess you'd call them traders or investors do in that moment is they realize that we are in overvalued territory. Maybe I take 1 or 2%, 10% off the table. That's why we always talk about creating a profit plan for yourselves, guys, leveraging the Merlin application. Click on the link below and sign up 30 days free. Now, if you're just joining the program, the title of the show is Trump to sign the Clarity Act very soon. I'm going to play this clip one more time. We opened up the episode with this. This is Donald Trump saying he wants to get the Clarity Act approved.
To unleash innovation in savings and financing, I'm also working to ensure America remains the crypto capital of the world. And to that end, last year, I signed the landmark Genius Act into law. Now Congress is working very hard on crypto market structure legislation, Bitcoin, all of them, which I hope to sign very soon, unlocking new pathways for Americans to reach financial freedom. And I did it for two reasons. Number one, I thought it was politically good, and it was. I got tremendous political support. But more importantly, China wanted that market too. It's just like they want the AI. And we've got that market, I think, pretty well locked up. If I didn't do it, Biden was totally against it until before the election when they realized that, there were millions of people voting against him over crypto. And all of a sudden they loved it very much, but it was too late. They blew it. But it is politically popular, but it's much more importantly, we have to make it so that China doesn't get the hold of it. And once they have that hold, we're not going to be able to get it back.
Well, there you go, guys. That's why it's so important. And like I stated, whenever we want to get anything done, we just point to China and Russia and say, if we don't do it, they will. But Keith, what's on your mind?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's definitely funny to hear him acknowledge the fact that it was politically popular. I think that's pretty funny. He actually was in Tennessee when he did the rally, and there was a couple of things about that I thought were interesting, and some of this loops back into the comments that have been said at the World Economic Forum. He talked about how he wanted to make America the crypto capital of the world. He did the thing where he was like, and we're going to fire Gary Gensler on day one. And the crowd just went crazy. And that was hilarious. He said it again, because he's just a perfect showman. Like that's one of his particular talents, whether you like him or you don't, is he's a little bit of a comedian, and he's definitely a showman, right? Like he knows how to work a crowd and how to say things that make people moved, whether that's anger or excitement. The thing that was also being said at that conference was he was coming back to this idea of no more CBDC, or we won't allow a CBDC. And I thought that was also a very interesting thing to point out at that time. I made a video a few months ago where I was like, that's an interesting thing to say. I mean, it's the only crowd that you could say that to where people would know what you're saying, right? Because a CBDC isn't something that's a part of the everyday vernacular. Now, you had a very similar thing with Ron DeSantis in Florida. He was like, oh, we're going to ban CBDCs in Florida. And I was like, that's a really weird thing to like stand up on as the governor of a state. Like, why is that relevant to your constituents? They don't even know what that word means, most of them, right? So I bring that up because I saw another clip at Davos where this guy was talking to Brad. I think he was talking to Brad Garlinghouse, and he basically just threw the word CBDC in there as if it was surely an inevitability, right? Like this wasn't something that he like mentioned as maybe it'll come. Like he was like, you got stable coins, CBDCs, and all that. It's coming. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, word. And only bring that up because there's this like rhetoric around not having a CBDC, but then we have the stable coins being pushed through. And I'm sure you guys talk a little bit about how the stable coins could potentially be an instrument that's used in a very similar kind of way, right? Just with a different kind of way through which the collaboration happens in the back end, like who actually has the access to the keys themselves. Now, the last thing I was going to say was about that. I got distracted by the comment on the screen, but
that's okay. And Keith, you know what? I'm going to stall for a moment
cool.
here. I want to show respect to the people who sent live donations, guys. We do have almost 4,000 live listeners here. If you're enjoying this content, be sure to smash that like button. We're nearly at 700 likes, and that was the goal for today. So shout out to you guys, the best community in all of crypto, Keith. I don't know if you know. If you don't know, now you know, my friend. But Seven Dennis said, been watching Keith. He goes to Bangkok like me. Well, shout out to Seven Dennis. I'm sure we got a lot of people in our live chat who also enjoy your content because we circulate on a lot of the same topics. So kudos to you, Keith. Keep up the awesome work. Psychosmos, this is our friend Matt out there with the $5.89 donation. He said, Abs and Uncle Johnny, great show. Don't forget that February is eclipse season. Get ready for big changes. Love you both and the GEC show. Well, Matt, the love is mutual, my friend. And I think that $5.89, that's what we're waiting for in the XRP community, guys. Richard said, Keith, you know your shit. Good mind. You keep up the good work. Shout out to Richard. Excuse my language, but I read the comments as they come, my friends. Thank you for the $5 donation and the membership. I also want to give a big shout out to Black Squirrel. This is Thomas in our live chat, another really valued member. He said, for anyone involved in the Link2 bankruptcy case, your vote must be cast by the 26th of January. Don't forget to vote. Thank you for the reminder. Shout out to Thomas, aka Black Squirrel. And guys, I know a lot of people were asking about KG. I did send a DM to KG, checked on him. He's doing phenomenal. He's doing well. So I just wanted to share that news on this channel as well. And then Seven Dennis with another $5 dono and a moderator. Shout out to Seven Dennis. We appreciate you. Ripple, Stellar, and Hedera Job App said, we are a federal contractor, not to empty the waste baskets. Now, I like that little remark at the end. Yes, I don't think they're hiring Ripple employees as janitors. They'd be far too expensive. But at the end of the day, these are the connections that we rely on, Keith. For a long time, I've talked about Hedera because I really value connections and leadership teams. When I look at the Hedera network, they're working very closely with some of the most important companies on the planet. It's Google, it's IBM, it's Microsoft. And that's what I think is going to end up being most important after the Clarity Act. All of these companies who have been testing blockchain use cases, working with stablecoins, working with smart contracts, finally, we're going to start seeing the onboarding of real world companies once the rules of the road are written. It's almost like they built the highways and they have vehicles, but nobody told them how fast they can drive or what the rules are. So everyone's afraid to drive that car on the road. That's what we're on the precipice of here. So big thanks for bearing with us through the donations. What are your thoughts there?
You know, that's a really beautiful analogy. I like that, Abs. And the thing is I don't know that we've seen that before, right? So when it comes to that like big bang approach to what could happen, it does make that more possible, right? Like we're talking about Microsoft, Google haven't been worked with Hedera for years now, right? Like that's from the beginnings of Hedera, right? They were working with these different companies. I don't know if you guys remember, there was like this, there was this TED Talk probably about it. 2017, maybe a little bit earlier, that was about the hash graph. And it was just this concept of before people even knew what a blockchain was, right? There was this TED Talk about a hash graph solution and how it was better than blockchains and how it would kill blockchain or whatever. I'm pretty sure it was a TED Talk. And but point being, it's been around for a while, that technology and this concept of the directed acyclic graph, right? That allows you to have consensus with a much larger amount of just a higher velocity of transactions, right? In a shorter period of time, because it doesn't use deterministic outputs. It's a probabilistically deterministic system, meaning that technically it's not finalized, but in reality, based upon the amount of data points that it has, it still can go forward with certainty that the system will still work. So with all of that said, I mean, it's a superior technology for thinking about the applications of data, right? You're not going to use Bitcoin, right, to put data on a blockchain. That's just not going to work very well. But these directed acyclic graphs and the hash graph concept, being able to do thousands and thousands of transactions per second. I think one of the things that people sleep on the most is this concept of the tokenization of data itself, right? So Facebook, Google, Meta, when we can get to the world to where our data points on these platforms have financial values that we potentially have access to, I think that's something that this technology can enable. And when I say that, if anyone's ever used Facebook or Instagram, you get these ads that come up on your screen, right? I, as an advertiser, I'm paying Google or Facebook to get an ad in front of you, but that works through what's called a bidding system. So I'm basically competing with other advertisers to get your attention. And so with all of that being said, we're not involved in that process at all. Right? Like we don't get a choice to choose what to share with them. We don't get a chance to choose how much that's worth to us. And I think that these types of technologies that we're dealing with could completely flip that entire situation around, where you could actually have a portal that says, oh, this is all of the data that Facebook has on me. I'll cut this one on because I don't mind companies having that one. And I'll get paid a certain amount for that. Either that's the market rate that they're willing to pay for that data point, or I can set an amount, right, that I'm willing to sell it at. And if someone wants to buy it, they can buy it. So how are we not participating in that process right now? Why is that the case? Now, you're going to need laws maybe that would incentivize that too, but it could also work when Meta has their own token, right? When Facebook tried to launch Libra, like they got shut down and all of that. But if they had their own token and the token had that kind of utility within the network, then Facebook might be incentivized to create an entire economy around that token, because now they're, the 50% of the holders of the token. So they don't mind actually having an actual ecosystem where the advertisers and the content creators can actually interact with one another. And the users of the platforms can actually interact with one another in a more fair way, because the whole pie is going to grow when that happens. So anyways, just wanted to talk about some of that when it comes to tokenization and the things that a company like Hedera could potentially open up for the world.
And this is what Brad had to say on tokenization this morning, guys. We do have 4,200 people. Give a massive thank you and shout out to Keith D for joining us. If you're looking for more of Keith's content, guys, check him out on YouTube, The Inner Operator, and you're going to see this account. I typed in Keith D to find this account, so I'm pretty sure you can type that in as well. He'll be the first one to come up. But he does a daily video every day, walking and talking many of the topics that we break down and more. So shout out to Keith for the amazing work he's doing. And this is what Brad Garlinghouse had to say about tokenization at the World Economic Forum, and it ties really well into what you just broke down.
I subscribe to Brian Armstrong's comment earlier of like opening up investment access, and investment versus speculation. I put in kind of two different buckets. They both have a purpose. They both have active market participants. But I think the opportunity around tokenization for certain verticals is, in fact, the democratization of access to investment, less so on the speculation side. I don't know enough about Trump's decision to make steps towards banning institutional investment in residential real estate to comment there. But I do think if you want economic exposure, investment exposure to a commercial building in Miami, and you have $10,000 US, you can't do that today. And I think opening that up, and I know Brian's example is even better because it's the many billions of adults who don't have any access. My example is not perfect for that, but.
Right.
So this was hilarious, guys, because I want to actually reference something else that happened on stage during this debate. This guy you're looking at right here is a central banker who didn't understand that Bitcoin's a finite asset. He goes, you can always print more Bitcoin, and that's why we need the same protections that we have for the banks. Well, Brian Armstrong did a phenomenal job of calling him out, and I think I should actually just play the clip, Johnny, and then I'll kick it straight to you and Keith here. But it's so funny because it goes to show the powerful people who control the system today still don't really understand these assets. And that's a big concern for me, because I think in one way, it's a major opportunity, but in another way, it goes to show they're no better than the average retail consumer when it comes to their understanding of this technology in a major way. And it's people like Brian Armstrong who are going to be responsible for correcting these mistakes. Now, obviously my computer's glitching here, but we're going to get this thing figured out. This is Brian Armstrong talking on stage, telling him how Bitcoin can't be printed. Here it is.
Bitcoin doesn't have a money printer. The supply is fixed, and people will go to it in times of uncertainty, kind of like they did with gold.
Sorry to say that I trust more independent central banks with a democratic mandate than private issuers of Bitcoin, which have a very useful role. But
Bitcoin is a decentralized protocol. There's actually no issuer of it. So that's in the sense that central banks have independence. Bitcoin is even more independent. There's no country or company or individual who controls it in the world. And so anyway, I think it's a healthy competition because if people can decide which one they trust more, and I think it's actually the greatest accountability mechanism on deficit spending.
Well, there you go. Kind of reminds me of the old Mark Yusko quotes from back in the day, Johnny Krypto, where we used to talk to Yusko about this, moving from a trust system to a truth system. from trusting these counterparts to total transparency about what they're doing. And I think it's great. I do want to be respectful of Keith's time, guys. I do want to give a huge thank you to him for joining us during today's episode. Johnny, closing remarks. We'll go to Keith and we'll wrap it up.
Well, Abs, if fresh runs were touchdowns, Brian just gave 2 fresh runs, pow, bang to that banker, and then they just don't understand it. It's kind of actually insulting and embarrassing almost to the banking industry that you're sitting up there on stage and don't even know the product you're talking about. But again, I'm not surprised that the banking system, they're very arrogant. They don't care. They're in control. Let's just be honest with everybody, okay? The bankers, the biggest cartel in the world, they have all the power and say, and they know that. They understand it. That's why they don't even care to go and do the research to be up there and know what they're talking about. But the reality, Abs, is at the end of the day, we are seeing a shift. We are going to see a merge. You know, what Keith was talking about is very, very interesting, right? We know blue skies out there. They're looking at innovating, social media, where, example, you can own your content. You can get paid now when people are advertising. I think those days are coming. The blockchain is good and bad, right? We always talk about a CBDC. We know all the bad things about that, but the good things are, being able to get paid the same day, being able to get, control your own data, being able to get paid. There's going to be benefits on both sides. And it really comes down to, Abs, what's written in the Clarity Act. And I believe we know that Trump is anti-CBDC. We want to see those kind of regulations in there. I think that's really going to be the key. Hopefully the rules are written good enough where there's enough protections there. I think America will be the last country to submit to a CBDC. I think you're going to see a lot of pushback on that, even though the other countries are doing it. China, for example. I think in America, we will be one of the last. Let's pray for that, because we know the downside to that. But overall, I want to say it was a pleasure having Keith on board. Loved having you there. Hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Oh, yeah.
But I do believe better times are in front of us. We're moving to this space. We just got to be patient and play it like smart money, folks. Now's the time.
Johnny, if we want to avoid a CBDC, remember, everyone's focused on gold and silver. Never forget the lead, my friends. But I want to give a big thank you to Keith for joining us as well. I know a lot of people out there are wondering where they can follow Keith on Twitter. Well, follow his YouTube, The Inner Operator on YouTube. He's got 180,000 subs, puts out a video every day. You do phenomenal content. And again, I've been sharing some of your content with Johnny. I just found your channel, I believe, like last November-ish. So shout out to the YouTube algorithm for finally recommending me some of your content. And like Johnny said, we'd love to have you back again soon if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
We'll schedule it. We'll work it in, guys. So massive thank you to Keith. Keith, any closing remarks for today and anything else you'd like to say? Floor is yours, my friend.
Man, I've never heard that lead comment before. That's pretty good.
3 precious metals. You have to have gold, silver, and the lead to protect them both.
Somebody commented on one of my videos yesterday, and they were like, they mentioned that and how that's a permissionless technology as well. And I was like, oh, snap, that's a good one. But yeah, no, this was awesome. I really appreciate the time and being here. You guys have a really cool crowd, and it's cool that you guys have so much support. I thank you to everybody who's been watching my stuff and all the comments, all the nice comments I see. You guys, I really appreciate all that. So yeah, I'm happy to do this again. This was awesome, man.
We'll have to do it again, guys. And once again, I do want to give a big shout out to Keith for joining us today. If you're looking for more of his content, check out The Inner Operator on YouTube. You're going to get a daily update. And I really like the way you do your content. You do this content where you kind of hold a walking stick. You just walk and talk into the camera. Completely different approach than what we do here, guys. But I love it. And I even said to Keith before the stream, I'm like, I may have to copy one of the greats and start incorporating that type of content on our show. So with that being said, listen, you called Trump a comedian. I want to play one clip before the end of the episode. And it's just this.
Well, you don't know much about crypto. You know nothing about nothing. You fake news.
That's a clip that we love to rely on because that, believe it or not, that clip gets a lot of utility on this channel. So we got to play a whole lot of videos from different sides of the argument. We love to kind of play that and talk about it. Now, that doesn't apply to you, Keith, but I do want to give a huge shout out and thank you once again. We got 4,500 live listeners here, guys. If you enjoyed today's content, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you all in the next.
I'm going to be so proud of you, President, and I don't care about that. But you are going to be so proud of your country because we're going to turn it around and we're going to start winning again. We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with healthcare and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet. We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have